Andrei has traveled to Italy to research the life of a famous Russian composer. While there, a sense of isolation and ennui racks his body and his mind. His translator, Eugenia, guides him through Italy but cannot solve his loneliness, his despair. He does not know what to do about it or even truly why it has infected him. He meets a man of great faith and possible mental illness, Domenico. Andrei's travels through Italy show him the different forms of loneliness and isolation among the people there. In meeting these people, he hopes to discover the source of his own loneliness. Eugenia travels to a convent in the Tuscan countryside to show Andrei the frescoes. At the last minute, Andrei decides not to go inside. Alone, she finds the sacristan and asks him why women are more devout than men. Why are women, she believes, more willing to devote their lives to God? The sacristan avoids the question at first, but eventually relents, claiming he is only a simple man and he believes that women exist to produce children. Offended, Eugenia asks if that is her entire worth, but the sacristan dodges the question further. It could be that Eugenia was leading the sacristan to say that perhaps women are in greater need of prayer if they are not seen as the equals of men. She comes to the church, she pays her respects, and the church authority, at best, humors her. For Eugenia, her isolation is that of society. She wonders why, if she is so devout, if women are so devout, why they are not afforded the same place in society as men by their God. The Bible says, "Be strong and courageous, not be terrified, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you." These words must ring hollow to Eugenia. Before the events of the film, Domenico kept his family isolated from the world for 7 years, believing that the end of days was upon them. They were eventually freed by the police. Domenico previously lived in a mental institution but now lives his life as an oddity among the townspeople. His isolation is the difference between the way he thinks and the way everyone else thinks. It traps him, much like his family, and keeps him at a distance from the rest of the world. Towards the end of the film, he makes a speech on top of a statue. He tells the people they must learn to be brothers and sisters to one another, to no longer be isolated and alone. Then he sets himself on fire. His words must have fallen on deaf ears because nobody really tries to help him. Nobody attempts to talk him down before he immolates himself. The people watching are all standing apart from each other, keeping their distance. The only dissenting voice is a dog, loyal and true, who has been tied up and cannot help. Andrei's isolation appears, at first, to be centered around his being away from home. He is a Russian in Italy. He remarks that the borders to keep people in one country or another should be abolished. Borders make people think of others as strangers. Yet, even though he is there alone and away from his wife, Eugenia reminds him that he has not bothered to call his wife for days. Andrei's isolation is that of everyone. He simply feels alone, even among other people. Some things cannot exist without something else. A whole, for example, is an object of reference and cannot exist without something else to which it is connected. But Andrei is not simply missing someone or something, it's more than that. There is a gulf between ourselves and others. Loneliness is more than the absence of other people. Andrei could simply call his wife or take the opportunity to sleep with a willing Eugenia. People can be lonely even with other people around. Being lonely even in a crowded room. If someone can be lonely with other people, then it is more of an existential loneliness. 20th century philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre once said, "If you are lonely when you are alone, you are in bad company." In a more sympathetic light, however, the philosopher believed that loneliness exists because of the paradox between a person's desire for meaning in the universe and the nothingness of isolation of the universe. We are condemned to be free. We are solely responsible for ourselves, and if that is true, then we all live and die alone. Andrei is told that one drop added to another drop does not make two but one. 1 + 1 = 1. Even combined, all are alone. Later, Andrei visits the pool of St. Catherine. The hot springs in this part of Italy were created to alleviate the suffering of the ill. Also, Saint Catherine was a strong advocate for the reunification of the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church during the Great Schism. Andrei, too, seeks the will of Saint Catherine to heal the illness within himself and create a unity within himself. Domenico says that carrying a candle across the pool will save the world. Desperate, Andrei tries this, but upon his success, does he save the world? Does he even save himself? Is this act of faith any more successful than Eugenia's desire for answers from God in the beginning of the film? For some, there is a connection between acknowledging an indifferent universe and loneliness. Many of the shots in the film are from a distance. There is so much space between one object and another, one person and another. There is so much silence. In Nostalgia, we see the inherent loneliness of humankind. Maybe loneliness is just the human condition, an awful, forced solipsism. Over the course of the film, Andrei pines for his homeland. This is the titular nostalgia, but the word has come to mean different things to different people. Nostalgia is not only wistfully remembering the past. Nostalgia is loss. It is the remembrance of things past. It is the feeling that something cannot be reclaimed. Andrei is in Italy to research the life of 18th century Russian composer Pavel Sosnovsky. He lived in Italy for a time and returned home to Russia only to commit suicide shortly thereafter. He did not simply miss Russia, he missed his former life, and that could not be reclaimed. Nostalgia was the first film Tarkovsky made outside of the Soviet Union, eventually becoming an expatriate. Nostalgia is perhaps Tarkovsky's most melancholy film, and based on what was happening in his life at the time of filming, it is no surprise. Much like Sosnovsky, he could not truly go home again. Hi everyone. If you like what I do, please click on the orange Patreon link below. That's how this show happens. It's also how you can request an episode. There are also a lot of other perks for being a patron, so check it out. The information is on my Patreon page. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you next week.